The Richard Roeper Show is brought to you by AmericanEagle.com Studios. The digital landscape is changing rapidly, and to compete in today's online business environment, you need that experienced partner. Since 1995, AmericanEagle.com has partnered with companies of all sizes offering web design, web development, e-commerce, mobile apps, and digital marketing to drive your overall business's success because they believe that today's online world is your online opportunity. Visit AmericanEagle.com to get started today. AmericanEagle.com. AmericanEagle.com. I'm moving all these things around on my screen. I got the biggest computer screen you can get, the desktop guy. And then still, there's so many little windows and things. And I have the iPad over here. You know, people sometimes, some of my friends make fun of me for having a desktop. They're like, why do you have a desktop? I'm like, because I'm chained to the damn thing and watching videos and trailers and working on stuff. And I love it. I love the desktop. They had to get the new Magic Keyboard because if you lose one key on the keyboard, if one of them gets loose and you try to repair it, and there's YouTube videos showing you how you can replace the question mark. In my case, I think it was like the backspace key. Don't super glue it, by the way. That doesn't work either. And you just finally go, F it. I'll just get the new Magic Keyboard for, it's not cheap. It's $189 or whatever on Apple. And then they bring it to your house, in 3 hours. There's an Apple man with an Apple bag handing you, which doesn't have apples in it, although I think they should give you a nice green apple. But anyway, the other part about that is every time you do anything, recording something, ordering something, Instacart, DoorDash, whatever, they want to give you the survey. How was your experience? How did JJ do delivering you your shit? Whatever the case may be. And, I don't mind doing the thumbs up and thumbs down. I did that before in my life, yeah. But then they're always like, even for like the experience where I called Apple about this keyboard and they, which one should I get? Blah, blah, blah. They're always really nice and very helpful. But then it's like, will you take a short survey? And I'm like, where am I doing the research for you? Sometimes they'll give you like $10 or something if you'll do it. Hey, we'll give you a couple of dollars if you help out with this. But a lot of times they just want some help figuring out so they can serve you better. But the thing that kills me is if I do give a thumbs up to my delivery person or my repair person or whoever, then it's like all these balloons and streamers come flying across your screen. And then it's like, great. Can you tell us specifically what you enjoyed and appreciated? And then there's a whole drop down menu. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, man, I just wanted to order some toilet paper. First world problems, as the kids say. Lots going on in the world of entertainment and pop culture. Meryl Streep took matters into her own hands. We have learned as the wildfires rampaged across Los Angeles County just in the last couple of weeks, and it's obviously an ongoing situation. Lots of great fundraisers out there and ways to help out. But according to nephew Abe Streep, this is a piece, I think, of New Yorker and then the LA Times and others picking up on it. New York Magazine. Like a lot of other people, famous and rich and not famous and not rich, Meryl Streep's home was in the path of the fire. She was trying to evacuate her home. And according to this story, her driveway was blocked. So she borrowed. Now, Meryl Streep's 75, by the way, and one of our greatest actors, but you don't think of her as an action star. But she borrowed a neighbor's wire cutters and cut a car-sized hole in a fence that they shared so she could drive through the neighbor's yard to escape in her car. And she's fine, of course. Badass move by Meryl Streep. And this New York Magazine article, they talked to a lot of people. And again, they talked to, Martin Short, who had lived in Pacific Palisades, I think since the 80s, but also just a lot of regular working folks. And we've made this point before. A lot of geniuses on social media were, crying crocodile tears when they heard stories about various famous actors and celebrities and Hollywood figures who lost their homes. And first of all, no matter how much money you have, it's your home. Your home is your home. So, it's still a devastating thing. But we still have to remember people have this impression, especially people who haven't been to so-called Hollywood, Los Angeles, if you will, that everybody there is rich and famous and works in the movies. And 99% of the people who even work in the industry aren't rich and famous. And of course, a lot of people who live and work there aren't in the business at all. So it's a lot. It's the working class people, the middle class, even upper middle class, who are going to be tasked with rebuilding homes and maybe not able to do it, and all kinds of insurance stuff going on. So kudos to Meryl Streep for getting those wire cutters and getting out of there. Speaking of iconic stars and kind of looking back, this is my segue to the fact that we're seeing more and more of this trend. This trend's been going on, I don't know, this movement for at least a dozen years now, where big stars reprise characters from famous movies they've done or TV shows for commercial purposes, for ads. So Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan from When Harry Met Sally, of course, have reunited for a Super Bowl ad. They're recreating the famous diner scene from When Harry Met Sally. I'll have what she's having, Rob Reiner's mother, with one of the greatest punchlines in movie history. Perfectly timed scene, and Meg and Billy are great in it. So we can actually play a little of this because it's out there. It's coming. It's a Super Bowl ad, but this day and age, they put the Super Bowl ads out online well in advance to get buzz and clicks and everything. So here's Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan reuniting for a Super Bowl ad.
I can't believe they let us back in this place.
Why?
Hello?
Nobody remembers that.
Something wrong?
Not doing it.
No good?
Nothing.
Oh, we can't have that. What's happening? Here we go.
Oh my God.
Oh, boy.
So good. It's just, woo!
Oh. This one's real.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
Lunch and a show, huh?
Ooh.
How about that?
That is a sandwich.
I'll have what she's having.
I'm competing with a condiment.
Good stuff. Sydney Sweeney has a cameo. You know, it's interesting, as I mentioned, like maybe 15 years ago, and at least for 20 years, you know, the Super Bowl ads were such a huge deal, and there were all these. We'd get Reports USA Today famously did a great job. A lot of other places, we would watch the ads in real time and then write reviews of them. And we didn't usually know. Sometimes there would be a leak of who was going to be in an ad, but the whole idea was the Super Bowl ads. You know, everybody would stay and watch the ads. You'd go to the bathroom maybe during the halftime show if you didn't like the halftime act, or if there was a timeout on the field, but or an injury or something like that, or some kind of break in the action. But especially in the first half, you'd be like, no, I got to see the commercial. Sometimes in the second half, they'd run familiar ads, movie trailers, or an ad would get a second placement. But that's why it cost so much money for that exposure, because it was an incredible audience, more than 100 million viewers every year. Now, these days, the thinking is, yeah, it's still going to get a ton of exposure at the Super Bowl, but so many people now don't watch commercials, or they'll start recording and then catch up with the game as it goes along, whatever the case may be. So they put them online and get all this buzz. So Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan reuniting for a Super Bowl ad, playing the characters that they played, Harry and Sally. I have mixed feelings about this. I love seeing the two of them together. I love Meg Ryan and Billy Crystal. My interactions with them, only professional, of course, through the years. That's right. No, I never dated either one of them. No, but I mean, I've interviewed them both for separate movies over the years, and wonderful people, lovely to talk to, and big fan of both of their work. And part of me goes like, I wish we could just leave these characters in the moment that they lived. And on the other hand, it's like, hey, man, what the hell? It's kind of fun too, right? No harm, no foul. It doesn't do anything to the spirit and memory and soul of the original movie, and it's great. Now, the other thing I will say, though, for this particular ad, it's for a mayonnaise. It's with the conceit being that Meg's sandwich is bland, and then she added mayonnaise to it, and then it tasted great. And I know there's a lot of mayonnaise people out there, and they got that mayo bowl now, right? I don't even know which brand of mayonnaise it is. And of course, they have all these different types now. It's not just the bland white stuff. But I will say this, I'm not going to hate mayonnaise, man. Especially the original. It's one of everybody I think has their foods that are just like, oh my God. And I will not carry mayonnaise in this home. If you come over, and you're welcome to stop by, just give me some advance notice. I will not have olives. I will not have mayonnaise. I'll have just about anything else you want, or I don't mind getting it. But I've been involved in relationships where people would bring over their own olives. No, olives, just the texture of them just gross me out so much. And same thing with mayonnaise, just the smell of it. And listen, I like a lot of foods that other people like. I can't believe you like, I love pickles, for example. And pickles are kind of a polarizing food, if you will. But mayonnaise, yeesh, aish, osh. There's also an ad, a new ad coming out, encouraging Hollywood to come to Texas and film television and movies in Texas with Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson. And they're actually in their characters from True Detective. And I think Billy Bob Thornton and Renee Zellweger, Dennis Quaid, other Texans are participating in the ad campaign. That's kind of cool. Matthew McConaughey, by the way, and I love him, but man, that man, he's in a lot of commercials. He's getting not something. He's doing something for Salesforce where he's eating in the rain. And he doesn't like shrimp cocktail. And Woody Harrelson, his buddy, is across the street where it's not raining. And then he's got these conspiracy theories. I think it's Uber, right? Where he's telling, hey, Jerry's eating rice. Sorry, that was bad, McConaughey. But we talk about these actors and their lifestyles. And Matthew McConaughey, is an Oscar-winning actor. He's made a lot of money, but you got to keep the money coming in, and they make more from commercials, I guarantee you, than they do from most of the movies and TV shows they're doing these days. So that's another ad that's out there. In the past, we had Bill Murray, he reprised the Phil Connors character, remember, for a Groundhog Day ad for Jeep that was like a miniature movie.
Okay, campers, rise and shine. It's Groundhog Day. And don't forget your booties, because it's cold out there today.
Phil? Hey, Phil!
No, not you.
It's me, Ned Ryerson!
Okay, little fella, good job. That's different. Good job.
Hey!
We got the groundhog!
And they get a lot of the sporting players from these movies who get to come back, which is kind of neat because in some cases it's a nice paycheck. Matthew Broderick sort of played Ferris Bueller for a Honda ad. Remember when the dude, Jeff Bridges, and Sarah Jessica Parker, Carrie Bradshaw, teamed up for Stella Artois? That was so weird, but it really worked. And I know Alicia Silverstone has come back with the Clueless character. Mike Myers did Dr. Evil. Jim Carrey actually was the cable guy for an ad years ago. The cable guy was insane, so it was kind of weird to bring his character back. But so it's a thing, and we'll probably see another one or two of these in the Super Bowl that we don't know about, where these celebrities return playing themselves or various versions of famous characters they've played. Here's another return reboot. Netflix has announced a Little House on the Prairie reboot. And this has got some folks all up in arms, worried that they're going to ruin their Little House on the Prairie. That was, of course, the series Michael Landon, based on the books, right? The third book in Laura Ingalls Wilder's. She had those, they were autobiographical novels, basically, right? So, I mean, Little House on the Prairie was a pretty big hit. I would tell you, I can say in all transparency that I've never seen a complete full episode of Little House on the Prairie. I don't think I was the target audience. I didn't have any interest in it. I recognize that it was a popular hit. It's nice to have those family-friendly hits. So now they're going to do a series ran from 74 to 83, by the way. Boy, longer than I thought. 10 years. Holy cow. Melissa Sue Anderson, Melissa Gilbert. She was half pint, right? I didn't know it ran that long. Man, that's good for them. So they're going to have Little House on the Prairie. It's going to be a legacy streaming series, a new version of it. And Megyn Kelly, among others, is worried, and she tweeted, Megan tweeted, "If you wokeify Little House on the Prairie, I will make it my singular mission to absolutely ruin your project." Okay. I think they are going to include the original family, but also it's going to follow some Osage tribe families in Kansas at that time, which would be historically accurate. And I guess people are worried about that. I don't know why. I mean, people are so easily threatened by anything that isn't in their comfort zone. And Megyn Kelly, I had good relations with her too. Again, professional, but we talked over the years and interviewed each other, and she's really embraced the hard right lean, and she has for a lot of years. She was very upset about Santa Claus one year. Remember that? But I don't know. And Megan's very popular, and she has her power and her platform. I don't know how she would be able to ruin a Netflix project. I will make it my singular mission to absolutely ruin your project. I don't think you can beat Netflix. Okay. I had other stuff to get to, but guys, it's already time for a break. We got to talk about Portillo's, and then I want to come back and talk about some new stuff hitting the streaming, hitting the theaters, all of that, and more when we come back. All right, it's time to tell you about Portillo's, the greatest single fast casual cuisine experience you're ever having, ever in your life. Let's talk about the hot dogs and all the famous Chicago ingredients. They'll do it for you, so you don't have to worry about getting it wrong. That includes the poppy seed bun. Then we could talk about the Italian beef, the sausage, and the fries, the salad, the chicken, you name it, all topped up, of course, with the legendary Portillo's chocolate cake. It's fast casual. That means it's better than fast food. You can sit down if you go to one of the restaurants, but it's still super casual. And you can order anywhere in the country via Portillos.com. That's Portillos.com. Once again, Portillos.com. Ask your friends from Chicago about it. Portillos.com.
Everyone in! Everyone! Thank you for understanding, everyone.
Give it to me.
We're all here to celebrate love. So why can't we just celebrate together?
How sweet was that? The other wedding's already having toast.
I want to give it a toast. Okay, you are literally the best person I know. Stop playing cornhole.
Sorry.
I had completely convinced myself that you would intentionally sabotage my sister's wedding.
Well, my sweet little pumpkin's gonna have her special day, and no one's getting in the way of that.
He is going down.
Okay, little sound there from You're Cordially Invited. This is Reese Witherspoon and Will Ferrell in a romantic comedy. I don't know, it's not really a romantic comedy. It's a situational comedy. We usually say sitcom for TV, but it's basically a high concept comedy. It's from Nicholas Stoller, a writer-director who I really like a lot. He does high concept, star-laden, R-rated comedies. He did Forgetting Sarah Marshall, which, believe it or not, was 2008. I recently rewatched that. Mila Kunis at her most charming and delightful. And of course, Jason Segel. That was Forgetting Sarah Marshall was 2008, believe it or not. And then Nick Stoller, he's done The Neighbors, Bros, which was a really good film from a couple of years ago. And now You're Cordially Invited kind of follows the same formula. So you get Reese Witherspoon and Will Ferrell. Reese's character is a reality TV director based in Los Angeles. And Will Ferrell is a widowed father. Now, Reese's character, Margot, I think this is, yeah, she's her sister's getting married. And then Will Ferrell's character, Jim, his daughter's getting married. And they double book by, a snafu, a crazy movie mix-up. They're double booked at the same idyllic inn that's on an island off the Carolina coast. Both wedding parties arrive. There's no real compromise because it's just for the one weekend and they can't handle two parties. But they decide, hey, we'll trade off. You can have the dock before sunset for your wedding ceremony. We'll take it after sunset. You could have indoors for your rehearsal dinner. We'll take the outdoors. And then crazy hijinks ensue because you're going to have two very different families and both of them have a lot of internal issues. You have Margot and Jim, who are both maybe overly invested in the weddings. This is the widowed father and then the big sister who never got married herself. Both control freaks, and they butt heads, and then they become friends, and then there's misunderstandings, and you get a lot of the wedding movie checklist things happening in this one. So these are not spoiler alerts for a comedy, guys. You know where we're going here, but there's probably going to be a karaoke number, and there is. The more people talk about how wonderful and special the wedding cake is, the more likely the wedding cake might not make it to the cutting of the cake ceremony, if you know what I'm saying. You're going to get these kinds of moments, and then the big revelations and meddling relatives and physical shtick. It's hit and miss, but I do find it. I found it's so dumb and just so funny, and a lot of it's because Reese Witherspoon and Will Ferrell are so good together. The only time they ever worked together was back in 2001. The first Saturday Night Live after 9/11, people remember it for then Mayor Rudy Giuliani standing on the stage with the police commissioner and the fire commissioner and dozens of heroes, and gives a very, say what you want about Rudy now, but at the time, he was America's mayor for a short period of time there and gave a very, beautiful tribute to everyone, to the victims, to the first responders. And then they cut to Paul Simon, famous New Yorker, who did this beautiful long, full version of The Boxer, and that got everybody worked up. And then Lorne Michaels, of course, the creator, the man behind Saturday Night Live, he came out And he said to Rudy, is it okay if we can be funny again? Is it all right? And Rudy said, why start now? So they kind of set the tone like, hey, we're now going to do a show because they wanted, New York City wanted people to come back. You know, New York City's open for business. That was the big campaign. They wanted people to come back to Broadway and go to the restaurant and not let the city become a ghost town because of this horrific, unimaginable act of murder, mass murder by these effing terrorists. So, but the host actually was Reese Witherspoon, young star, and Will Ferrell was in his last year at SNL, and they actually did a takeoff on The Little Mermaid that is so gnarly and nasty and hilarious. That's the only time they've ever worked together because Will Ferrell mostly doing the high concept comedies. He's done some dramatic work. Reese Witherspoon's was the rom-com star with Legally Blonde, and then got the Oscar for Walk the Line. Now she's a TV icon with series like Big Little Lies and The Morning Show. So, even though I think Will Ferrell's maybe 7 or 8 years older than Reese, they're kind of from the same generation. It's one of those pairings that we didn't know we needed until we got it. And they're terrific. And this is, of course, one of these movies, that when we go to the closing credits, we're going to get everybody in the cast singing a pop hit that was featured in the movie. So stick around for the closing credits. Will Ferrell and Reese Witherspoon, they dance and sing a duet. It's fantastic. On a completely different note, we have a movie called Companion coming out this week. This is a batshit crazy mashup of kind of Knives Out meets Cabin in the Woods.
There have been 2 moments in my life when I was happiest. The first was the day I met Josh.
I'm Josh.
I'm Iris. And the second, the day I killed him.
Just relax. Remember to smile and act happy. Iris, wake up.
What are you doing? Shut her down already.
What is she talking about, Josh?
So here's the setup, and I got to give away. I have to give away the twist that occurs 24 minutes into this movie because the trailer already did, and the poster even does. But if you don't want to know anything about the movie, go see the movie and come back to the podcast. But the deal is this: Sophie Thatcher, who's a terrific actor, and I thought with that name Sophie Thatcher, I just assumed, I kind of thought that she was British when she was in she's in Yellow Jackets, and she was in the Boogeyman, and then Heretic. She was one of the 2 Mormon girls who goes to Hugh Grant's place in Heretic. So she's doing a lot, and she even had a cameo. She was the FX artist in Maxine, so she's doing a lot of horror films. Actually, she's from Evanston, suburb of Chicago, and went to high school there before I think moving to California. Anyway, terrific young actor Sophie Thatcher. She plays a young woman named Iris, who is a girlfriend of this guy. Seems like a super nice guy who takes her to a fun escapist getaway at a friend of a friend's house, a remote house. But Iris is actually an AI companion robot. That's the big craziness here. And goes off from there, and a murder takes place. And here's the thing too: all of the movies when we have an entity, a machine that becomes self-aware, it almost never goes good for the humans. Whether we're talking about HAL in 2001: A Space Odyssey, all the way back in 1968, or not. Let's not forget the T-800s were the original ones, I believe, the Model 101s, and the Terminator, or Megan just a couple of years ago, your doll best friend. There's always that moment where they become self-aware. They're not real happy about the way the humans are treating them. And then the off switch never works when you really need it to switch off. So the movie's called Companion. It's kind of batshit crazy. It's really stylish. It's violent. It's got more than, that's just the first twist. There's several others. I thought it was really, really terrific. I also want to discuss a documentary series. I think this hit Netflix a couple of days ago, called American Manhunt, O.J. Simpson. It's a 4-part documentary series. And, we've had so many, it's believed it or not 30 years since the crime of the century and the trial of the century, as it was referred to back in the day.
O.J. Simpson.
O.J. is in custody.
This was a trial involving the most famous celebrity ever charged with murder.
Going nuts.
gonna beat the shit out of you. My brother was returning Nicole's glasses and was slaughtered to death.
I was the last person that saw OJ before the murders.
There was more evidence than I had ever seen in my life. Justice can be different things to different people.
And we've had fictional versions, and we've had documentaries and all kinds of books, and so much has been written and said about the case. But this is still fascinating because we see more evidence. We see actual archival footage of evidence that for one reason or another wasn't entered into the trial. We hear now OJ's gone. They did offer him a chance to participate in this documentary. And in classic O.J. Simpson fashion, he wanted to get paid a lot of money, which documentary filmmakers usually don't do. And he wanted to have some editorial control, which you're definitely not going to allow. It would have been fascinating to hear him once again spinning his bullshit. But we do hear from Kim Goldman, whose brother was murdered. We hear from a number of Christopher Darden, who was one of the prosecuting attorneys. We hear from, there's still Mark Furman and Lang and Van Natter. I can remember the names of all these cops. I covered that trial extensively back in the day and wrote 100 columns about it. And it's still amazing to see it. And you have, a friend of mine who's a journalist who's in her 30s. So she was basically, this was right around the time she was a baby, watched the series, and she's fascinated by it because she knew, the basics of the case, but not, and she's just like, while watching it, I keep getting these texts. I can't believe that happened. I can't believe this happened, because there was so much madness and craziness surrounding this. O.J. Simpson, this beloved figure, one of the greatest football players of all time, had become a super popular comedic actor and commercial spokesperson and man about town, but had this violent streak and had this temper. And this was his ex-wife, Nicole, who had, been the victim of violence at O.J.'s doing more than once. It was pretty obvious from the get-go that there was no other suspect in this case, but they bungled everything. The initial investigation, going back and forth between the site of the crime in front of Nicole's townhome, and then Rockingham, which was in Brentwood, where OJ's house was, and the debacle of the slow Bronco chase, because they told him they were going to arrest him for double murder, but hey, you can just turn yourself in when it's convenient, which is insane. The fact that Robert Kardashian was one of OJ's best friends and attorneys, and you see glimpses of his young daughters in some of the archival footage. The attorneys like F. Lee Bailey, who, this famous defense attorney, and then Johnny Cochran, who wiped the floor with the prosecution, quite frankly. And I have no doubt in my mind, and I think that anybody who watches this documentary, that O.J. Simpson did it, but I understand why he was found not guilty, because the prosecution, first of all, the cops bungled the case in far too many ways, from even the handling of the blood samples, and the fact that there was background information about Mark Furman that they didn't know about. He never should have put that guy on the stand. And they didn't, and Johnny Cochran, he did everything he's supposed to do. He defended his client. So I understand it's still insane that after a trial that went on for months and months, it took him like an hour and a half to deliberate. But you also have to remember the context. This was just a couple of years after the LA riots. So this case became about so much more than probably the most famous person ever arrested for murder. People have become very famous because of the crimes they committed. But in terms of celebrity prior to being arrested, it would be O.J. Simpson. So it's a fascinating documentary. It's, I think, 4 parts, and there's no filler. There's that much and more that could fill this story that people are continuing to talk about 30 years after the fact. American Manhunt, O.J. Simpson documentary series on Netflix. Next week, bunch of stuff coming out. I'm at that point right now where I've got like 10 titles. I got to figure out which 6 or 7 I'm going to review. There's a great Netflix series that's based on a true story, but is actually a work of fiction, some big movies, lots of great stuff coming out. We'll talk about all of that and more on the next podcast. Thanks for listening.